WTF Afghanistan. What in the world just happened in Afghanistan, in the Middle East over the weekend, really for the last couple months, a couple weeks. But what happened this weekend was nuts. One of the biggest global political governance, military stories of the last 50 years of recent memory is going on right now in Afghanistan. Lots of information coming your way. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching the Jobob Show. It starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Live from a dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world. My name is Jobob. This is the Jobob Show. Lots of stuff to cover today. If you're not familiar with what's going on in Afghanistan, this is the place to be to hear really all of the takes from all over the spectrum. There's a lot coming out, a lot still working its way through. So you have to pardon me if we're a little bit scattered here this morning. Lot of information, a lot of commentary coming through. Here's the one thing that I want to throw out there. If you have friends, family, younger generation specifically that don't really know what's going on in Afghanistan, this is where I'm going to try to break down the entirety of it. We've got a timeline of when things started to happen in Afghanistan, leading all the way up to today, what the ramifications of that are for people in Afghanistan as well as the United States on the world stage. So what we're going to try and do is build a cohesive picture of what actually happened. So, if you're an older generation or, my generation or up, and you've got college grandkids, kids who don't have any idea of what happens on a geopolitical scale when something like this takes place, feel free to send them this. This is going to hopefully be a concise, dumbed down version of what in the world is happening in Afghanistan. So feel free to share this with your younger generation who may not have any idea what's going on. I did an Instagram thing yesterday where I asked my wife, what's going on in Afghanistan? She had no idea. And that's not blaming her or saying that's anything bad on her part. That's just the reality of the situation. Some people are so disattached from the news cycle that didn't even make it on the radar. But what's going on in Afghanistan is one of the biggest global stories that have happened in my lifetime, where everybody's paying attention. Opinions are flying around. It's absolutely crazy. So before we get into that, really quick, I got to tell you about capitalist propaganda. You may be thinking, capitalist propaganda, isn't that a bad thing? No. Well, if the country of Afghanistan or a lot of those Middle East countries had more capitalism in their society or in their system, they might not be in the position they're in. So what we have to do is help spread capitalist propaganda. There's a lot of great gear that you can get to tell your friends that their socialist ideas totally suck, because they do. Head on over to capitalistpropaganda.us. Again, if countries in the Middle East had more capitalism, we would be in a much better situation. So get on over to Capitalist Propaganda, get the gear you need to tell your friends that their socialist ideas suck. Also, if you're watching this, we do have access to all the comments, so leave a comment on what you think or what you're thinking. Maybe we'll read some, maybe we won't. But feel free to comment, share your opinions. If you have any thoughts or there's something that we're missing or there's something that I didn't cover adequately, feel free to comment in the comment section wherever you're watching this, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere. Feel free to comment and we'll see what we can get to when we get to it. So I want to start off by doing this. There's a timeline that came from Reuters over the weekend. Well, before that, let's set this whole Afghan picture up. We've been there for 20 years. We've spent $2 trillion over there. U.S. servicemen killed in Afghanistan through April, 2,448. U.S. contractors, 3,846. Service members and NATO members, 1,100 members. Aid workers, 400. Journalists, 72. Being in Afghanistan, from a monetary standpoint, from an American lives standpoint, from a global lives standpoint, has been at tremendous cost. So keep that in mind when we're going through the timeline of it. And Barack Obama ran on getting out of Afghanistan. Donald Trump ran on getting out of Afghanistan. Joe Biden ran on getting out of Afghanistan. There's been pretty consistent, broad agreement that getting out of Afghanistan was the correct thing to do, and now we're doing it. So we're going to go through a timeline and then kind of give some commentary on what happened. So April 14th, President Joe Biden announces U.S. troops will withdraw from Afghanistan starting May 1st and ending September 11th, which is a weird thing to do. Admittedly, September 11th is also a celebratory anniversary for them and a harmful, painful reminder for us. But apparently we were going to celebrate, they were going to be able to celebrate the United States leaving on September 11th, which again is a positive day for people or the Taliban and Islamic regimes over there. May 4th, Taliban fighters launch a major offensive on Afghan forces in southern Helmand province. They attacked at least 6 other provinces. So less than a month after Joe Biden announces that the U.S. is going to withdraw from Afghanistan starting May 1st, May 4th, the Taliban fighters launched major offensives. May 11th, the Taliban captured the Nurk district just outside of the capital of Kabul as violence intensifies across the country. Fast forward about a month. Senior government officials say that more than 150 Afghan soldiers are killed in 24 hours as the fighting worsens. So remember, we've been there for 20 years training Afghan soldiers to hopefully be able to take care of their own so that we can leave. And in 24 hours, 150 Afghan soldiers are killed. The fighting is raging on in 26 of the 34 provinces in Afghanistan. June 22nd, fast forward 3 weeks. 2 weeks, Taliban fighters launch a series of attacks in the north of the country, far from the traditional strongholds in the south. Remember, so if you're not familiar with the geography of Afghanistan, the Taliban have the Helmand province in Afghanistan, in the southern part of the country. The Taliban have huge presence there, or at least bigger than they have everywhere else. But on June 22nd, they've been now advancing to the entirety of the country. The UN envoy for Afghanistan says they've taken 50 of the 370 districts. July 2nd, American troops quietly pull out of the main base in Afghanistan. Bagram Air Base, an hour's drive from Kabul, which effectively ends U.S. involvement in the war. Now, if you were paying attention back on July 2nd, there was a lot of hubbub about whether or not we had told Afghan leaders, whether or not we should have told Afghan leaders, but we basically just bounced in the middle of the night. And then books will be written on whether or not that was a good thing to do, because there's good cases to be made on really all sides of it. One, you can say that was not cool for us to do to the Afghan military, saying we're just going to leave. On the other hand, who do you trust over there? The Taliban have infiltrated, especially up until that point, infiltrated a lot of the different institutions that make up the Afghan military forces. So do you tell the Afghan military forces and just trust that they'll keep your plans a secret, or do you just go to protect American investment and American lives? A lot of debate on whether or not we should have done that in the way we did it, but we'll save that for the historians down the road. July 5th, the Taliban say that they could present a written peace proposal to the Afghan government as soon as August. We don't know if that was legit, because it might have been. It might have been the fact that they go, okay, well, we're going to take this slow. Their objective is to overrun the entire country. They also could have seen, we're going to take this slow, and then in the following weeks realized, holy cow, this is way easier than we thought, and just completely run the entire country. But at least that's what they were saying on July 5th. July 21st, Taliban insurgents control about half the country's districts, according to senior U.S. generals. So by July 21st, about 2.5 months after the United States announces starts to pull forces out, they have half of the country by July 21st. July 25th, the United States vows to continue to support Afghan troops in the coming weeks. This is Joe Biden and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken underlining the scale and speed of their advance. So basically, they realize on July 21st that the Taliban are moving quickly, and it is going to be a problem for the Afghan military forces. July 26th, the United Nations says that 2,400 Afghan civilians were killed or wounded in May and June as the escalating violence continues. Those are the highest numbers on record since 2009. So the United Nations said that 2,400 Afghan civilians, not Afghan military forces, Afghan civilians, were killed or injured in 2 months, which is, again, the highest months recording since 2009. August 14th, we'll fast forward a little bit, 4 of the provincial capitals fall in a day, including Kandahar, the country's second city and spiritual home of the Taliban. In the west, another key city, Herat, is overrun, and veteran commander Mohammed Imsul Khan, one of the leading fighters against the Taliban, is captured. Now we get to August 14th. Again, today's August 16th, so we're talking 2 days ago on Saturday. The Taliban take a major northern city with little resistance. Now, there's been almost no resistance. They've just been walking in, and people unfortunately understand the circumstances and have just said, just don't kill us or do whatever you're going to do. We're not going to put up a fight because they've seen in these smaller, more rural areas that if they do put up a fight, all of those people, one, Taliban has a lot of funding. They get a lot of their funding from Iran, which we can kind of hit on more later. But they have a lot of funding. They've got a lot of people. So they've got better military infrastructure when it comes to doing these sorts of operations. So the people in those rural areas, I would probably do the same thing. Honestly, I don't know how I would handle that situation. I'd probably, looking at the overwhelming amount of numbers and me with my family figuring out how we're going to survive this situation, you probably would do what they do and just let the Taliban come in, because what support do you have? And it's horribly sad, but that's the reality of what's going on. August 14th, still, let's see, the United States sends more troops to help evacuate its civilians from Kabul. The Afghan president says he is consulting with local and international partners on the next step. So this is Saturday. On Saturday, we ramped up getting our people out of the United States Embassy, as well as journalists that are living in Kabul, as well as humanitarian people working from all over the world living in Kabul. The United States military sent more people in there to get people out as quickly as possible with the fear that Kabul was going to fall. Yesterday, it did. The Taliban took the key eastern city of Jalabad without a fight, effectively surrounding Kabul. And yesterday is when the president of Afghanistan left the country and evacuated. On Saturday, he said, he's either Friday or Saturday, he said, yeah, I will die here defending our capital. Yesterday, he left. Hard to blame him. Not really much you can do. Just a terrible situation with really no good outcomes to be had. August 15th, Taliban insurgents enter Kabul. So this is yesterday, as Interior Ministry officials say the U.S. evacuated its diplomats from the embassy by way of helicopter. Now, I just want to, so we're going to play a couple videos here. I don't know if there's audio. I wasn't able to download them. One of my friends, Aja Smith, who's running for Congress in one of the local races, was posting a lot of videos yesterday that I thought were really, really great. So I'm going to share her feed right now and just kind of give you some videos that you may not be seeing anywhere else. None of these are super bad, but I also don't know if there's audio on these. So this is a video from I'm not sure if there is audio. If there is, so these are all prisoners walking out of the jail that the Taliban freed them from. So Taliban fighters were able to enter Kabul and basically free everybody from the prison who are going to then obviously be on their side. So this is a prison in Kabul in which prisoners are just walking out. I hate to make a joke here in this situation, but it kind of feels like California. Gavin Newsom, where you at, bro? This other video is a video of, here's the helicopter leaving the embassy of the United States. You've got a chopper making sure that our people get out of there, which makes a lot of sense to do. This one was really interesting. And again, if there's no audio and you can't hear this, especially if you're listening to the podcast, this is a video on an airplane coming out of the Kabul airport. It's completely chaotic. The airlines, obviously airplanes only sit a certain amount of people, and you've got people that are bringing anything and everything they can with them. This flight in particular was headed to Istanbul with just kind of chaos going. People are just on the plane. United Airlines drags people off of planes when they're in the wrong seat or whatever it is they're doing. Here, you've got people just standing, refusing to get off. And again, I don't know how much you can blame these people. It is a chaotic situation. Here's another video of, let me make sure this is right. So here's a video of the airport in Kabul. People literally bum rushing planes to try and get out, which again, I would be doing the same thing. This is a chaotic situation all around. The planes are being overrun. People are on the tarmac, which not how you do things at airports, but people are bum rushing planes, trying to get on, sneaking into the luggage section, bringing anything they can with them, knowing that they probably will never be back to where they have grown up and lived their whole lives. It's just a chaotic situation. And then this last one, this is the one I just played. This last one is trying to, again, get on the back end of some of these planes that are going to leave. This is a U.S. military plane. It appears to be boarding a C-17. Just absolute craziness what's going on. So commentary-wise, here's the thing. Everybody has thought Afghanistan was a lost cause. Like I said earlier, Obama ran on the fact that he's going to get out of Afghanistan. He never did. Trump ran on he wanted to get out of Afghanistan, and in May 2020 had a plan to get out of Afghanistan and was talked out of it by the military generals, the military industrial complex, if you will. But he wanted to get out. Joe Biden also wanted to get out. So in terms of the actual decision, and I know that you might not want to hear this, but this is the reality, we all wanted to get out of Afghanistan. There's a lot of people, not all, but the majority of Americans, as well as the previous two presidents, all the presidential candidates, really, it's pretty much a universal winning point. We needed to get out of Afghanistan. So there's people on the news media saying, oh, well, this is why we shouldn't have left. And that is a tough argument to make. We gave some statistic earlier. We spent $2 trillion, 20 years there. 2,500 of our troops, 3,500 contractors have been killed there. So it's hard to make the argument that we should have stayed. However, so you can't blame the idea necessarily. However, this is no way to do it. The execution of the plan, if there was a plan, could not have been like this. This is absolutely unacceptable in terms of having a plan to get out. While it's hard to place blame on the Biden administration for wanting to leave, because we all wanted to leave. Everybody, Obama, Trump, Biden, everybody wanted to leave. Minus your Liz Cheneys of the world, who said we shouldn't have left, or your Lindsey Grahams who want to be in every country all the time. And again, that's an argument for a different time. Everybody was in pretty good agreement that we can't continue to spend U.S. lives and dollars on a sand country that we really have no business being in. But this is not how it should have been done. Like, was this the plan? Was there any plan? Was the plan to have people sprinting across the tarmac to try and board an aircraft that's already full in the luggage section? It couldn't have been. And if it is, somebody's got to be held to account. Look, this is this is going to be put at the Biden administration's feet, right? Again, you can't blame them for the idea of wanting to leave, but this is going to be on them for having an ill-advised or not executed plan of doing so. The plan was completely atrocious. And here's the other thing, too, is they're trying to blame the Trump administration for its plans. Now, I understand where they're coming from that argument. Again, in May of 2020, Donald Trump decided he wanted to get out of Afghanistan, and the Biden administration is somehow using that platform and plan to justify what they're doing and saying, no, it's Trump. Well, here's some things to keep in mind. Joe Biden came into office and completely reversed a lot of other Trump policies. He put back all of not all, but a lot of the regulation on businesses to operate within the United States. He completely changed the border policy immediately when he entered office. There's a lot of infrastructure projects that he completely changed. Federal funding went in opposite directions of where Trump was going. So Joe Biden came into office, and the Biden administration came into office and reversed a lot. To say that they couldn't reverse this plan, if they're going to blame Trump, they say that they couldn't, it was already in place and everything was already moving under Donald Trump and therefore he's to blame. No, dude. You came into office and completely went the opposite direction, whether or not it was good for the country. Just to be saying, it was strictly out of an orange man bat. Look, whatever you think of Donald Trump, Mr. Biden, some of the things he was doing was great. The border policy wasn't the best situation, but it was working way better than it is now. And you changed it specifically for the case of Orange Man Bad. So blaming the Donald Trump administration for their plan to leave Afghanistan, while they did have a plan in place, there's no reason to say that you couldn't have changed the plan. This entire process and the poor execution of an ill-advised plan to leave Afghanistan falls at the feet of the Biden administration, and there's really nothing they can do to get out of it. I have a clip here from Joe Biden. This is, I believe, at a press conference on Friday, in which he was asked, do you regret the decision? This is, again, before they took Kabul. We'll get into a little more of this later, but the administration has been completely silent. Joe Biden hasn't given a press conference. The biggest international embarrassment of the United States on the world stage happened this weekend. Joe Biden has not talked to the media in days. Jen Psaki had a out of office email, didn't respond to any of the media. Nobody from the administration has said anything yet, which is crazy. This is, again, the biggest international embarrassment of the United States on the global stage, and nobody from the administration has said anything. If I was going to try and make an argument for them, there's nothing good to say. They can come out and give a press conference and just get hammered by the media. But anyways, I want to play this really quick so you can get the gist of it. Sometimes our video is a little bit choppy, so bear with us. But you should be able to hear the audio. This is a reporter asking Joe Biden a question at a press conference last week.
As multiple cities in Afghanistan have fallen to the Taliban, there's irrefutable evidence that a vast majority of those Afghan forces cannot hold ground there. Has your current plan to withdraw U.S. troops changed at all?
No. Look, we spent over $1 trillion over 20 years. We trained and equipped with modern equipment over 300,000 Afghan forces. And Afghan leaders have to come together. We lost death and injury, thousands of American personnel. They've got to fight for themselves.
Sorry, I realized I was turned off. Thanks for that, Tracy. So let me see. What I was basically saying is the fact that, as usual, there's no plan. It wasn't a well-executed plan. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is blaming the former administration, which doesn't make any sense, right? You could say that Donald Trump wanted to get out of Afghanistan. That is actually accurate. Donald Trump did. So did Barack Obama. For the last decade, people are saying we have to get out of Afghanistan. What are we doing here? We spent 20 years and $2 trillion, countless American lives. We got to get out. No, what they should be defending is the plan or lack thereof, because that is the real problem with the situation. And the fact that, we can't, we haven't been able to have a cohesive plan. That's what the Biden administration needs to defend. Now, I want to play a clip from Richard Engel. And again, I specifically went out of my way to get this clip of this individual from this news network. This is MSNBC. Richard Engel talking about Kabul on MSNBC. Take a listen to this.
The surprise here is not that it is happening as much as how fast it is happening. Would you agree with that?
No. Everyone keeps saying that. I've been listening all day. Oh, my God, we're shocked at how fast. I'm not shocked at all. Last time I was here, I was looking at the calendar and figuring out, because now with COVID and travel, when you're going to have to come back and how long you have to isolate. COVID makes you have to plan ahead a little bit on traveling. And I thought Kabul was going to fall right around now. That was just a gut instinct. And I think lots of people that I spoke to believe that. Last time I was here, I spoke to Afghan government officials, to Afghan military officials. It was well known that the security services were collapsing a month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So this feigned surprise that, or maybe it's genuine surprise, but if it is, I don't understand what it's based on. It was quite clear that it was going to come to this when you started to see the Taliban take territory without having to fight months ago. So, no, I'm not at all surprised by the speed. And then, these things snowball. Once you have enough momentum and have enough weapons, nobody's going to stand up to you.
Right.
And nobody did.
So, what they're saying, and this is, again, a not conservative reporter on a very not conservative news network, is that this shouldn't have been a surprise, right? There's one of two things could have happened. The Biden administration either knew that it was going to be this quick and disastrous, and were telling us, no, they'll be able to hold off. The Afghan forces will be able to hold off. We've trained them. We've spent $89 billion paying for their training and salaries while we've been there. But this reporter is saying that, no, this shouldn't have been a surprise at all. So one of two things. Either Joe Biden administration did know, and they've been lying to us for the last several months saying, oh, no, they'll be fine. Or they didn't know, which is almost worse because, like Richard Engel has been saying, there's been intelligence coming from everywhere saying that this is going to happen quickly. Again, there's no surprise that this is happening. This supposed surprise from your mainstream media sources that it's happening so quickly. Richard Engel says, no, absolutely not. He also tweeted this: the failure to anticipate the rapid fall of Afghan cities, including Kabul, is a huge U.S. intelligence failure. I know some U.S. military commanders anticipated. They told me, yet their voices were not heard. So Richard Engel, reporter in Foreign Affairs in Kabul in Afghanistan, was saying that there were military officials telling the administration this isn't going to go well quickly. Now, again, given the fact that we all wanted to leave, or we thought that spending U.S. lives and dollars was not necessarily a good idea, this sort of thing was seemingly inevitable, whether it was going to be 5 years, 10 years down the road. But a lot of the people that were involved in the military component of it were just basically saying that this is going to fall immediately, and that is unfortunately what ended up happening. And Richard Engel again explains that this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Publicly, they were saying that they can handle it, but internally they were saying give him 6 months. In reality, it's like 6 days. the Biden administration was caught unprepared. Anthony Blinken again said $85 billion has been spent to train Afghan military and to pay their salaries, and they lost in a week, which is unbelievable. Here's the other thing too. We've been the semantics around this. We've been calling it a war for the last 20 years. It hasn't been a war in a long time, and this is an objective thought on it. It hasn't been a war for a very long time. It's been a military occupation, which we could more easily justify. There's been one, like, not to say that this is meaningless, because obviously it's not, but there's been one combat military U.S. death in the last year and a half. What we've been doing is deterring the Taliban from doing exactly what they're doing. Semantics-wise, had we not called it a war, had the mainstream media, and I'm talking about all the mainstream media, called it a war for the last 20 years, it's very possible that we could have continued to maintain a presence without wasting U.S. dollars and spending U.S. lives, maintained a presence throughout Afghanistan to deter the Taliban, and all this could have been avoidable if we simply stopped calling it a war. But no, the mainstream media, everybody called it the war in Afghanistan, which again hasn't been a war for the last 10 to 15 years. And that's what my military friends are all telling me. We haven't been at war over there for a long time. But nevertheless, we've been calling it a war, and wars are bad, and we need to get out of wars, according to a lot of people out there in the Twitterverse. We need to get out of the war. But again, it hasn't been a war for the longest time. And had we simply been calling it a preemptive occupation to deter terrorist activity, which is a fair and reasonable and justifiable thing to call it, given the fact that, we haven't, fortunately, we've only lost one troop in a combat situation in about a year and a half. Who's to say we couldn't have just stayed in there as a preemptive occupation to deter the Taliban and really not do much else other than that? But again, the media, politicians continued to call it a war. And according to a lot of people out there, unnecessary wars are unnecessary. We got to get out. And that's what probably led to the Obama, Trump, and Biden all wanting to get out of the so-called war that hasn't been a war for the longest time. Here's another thing that people are talking about. How in the world does this make us look as a country? Look, I've said it at the beginning, I've said it throughout the entire thing. We're all pretty on board about getting our troops in a war situation out of Afghanistan. And it's pretty justifiable across a lot of spectrums. You got your Liz Cheneys, you got your Lindsey Grahams who think we should be everywhere all the time. That's a debate for another time, but we're all pretty on board. Again, Obama ran on getting out of Afghanistan. Trump ran on getting out of Afghanistan. Biden ran on getting out of Afghanistan. Everybody ran on getting out of Afghanistan, but not like this. And how does that make us look on the world stage? This is the biggest global political governance occupational story in the last 50 years. And it was an embarrassment, not because we decided to leave, but how we are currently still leaving. Like we showed those videos earlier, and I might show some again. Actually, yeah, we'll do that really quick right now. This is a video of an airport. Was it supposed to be like this? Was this the plan? The entire world are seeing these images and looking at the United States, the supposed superpower militarily on the planet, and going, was this supposed to happen this way? I don't think so. So what does that make us look like on the global stage? I hate to, pile on the embarrassment, but China is a huge problem for us right now. We are currently, and I don't want to dive into a whole other topic, but right now we are competing with China every single day to convince other countries to go with us as opposed to them. Chinese money is going around the entire world, building infrastructure, building all sorts of projects to get countries on their side, right? Ethiopia is a great example. The Chinese government, Chinese Communist Party, has spent billions of dollars in Ethiopia to prop up their infrastructure, to win that country to their side when the inevitable fight between the United States and China comes to play. So every single day, the United States is also trying to court favor with those other countries around the world. How does this make us look? If you're going to countries in Southeast Asia and saying, hey, you should come to, you should be on our side, and you should be an ally with us instead of China, because again, the two leading superpowers often go head to head against each other. We're trying to stockpile allies just as China is. How does this make us look at the negotiating table when it comes to getting people on our side? And also, Xi Jinping is seeing this, right? The Biden administration has been completely silent through the entire weekend. The entire country of Afghanistan was taken by the Taliban in weeks. Biggest political story on a global stage, biggest embarrassment of the United States on a global stage in decades. And the administration hasn't said a thing about it. Not only has the president not said anything, probably because he's in a nursing home somewhere or forgotten that he's president, but the press secretary hasn't said anything. Nothing. Radio silence. And they're probably saying something right now, and they're on TV right now that I'm not seeing, which, you know, whatever. They completely silent the entire time. Xi Jinping is seeing that. Look, what happens if next week China invades Taiwan? Has the administration or the military shown that we're going to do anything to slow that down? And where do we go from here in terms of nation building, if you will, or occupation or aiding other countries? Look, what if we go into those African countries and say we're going to take out Boko Haram, right? This is a hypothetical. And we need civilian help to be translators, to give us intel. And we say, and when we promise them, no, you're going to be fine. Everything's going to be totally fine. They have news in those countries also, and they're going to see this, and they're going to go, are you really, though? Are you really going to help us out when it's all said and done? Or are you going to leave us high and dry and have us scrambling for an airport seat once you decide to leave someday in the distant future? Are people in those countries going to trust the United States to any extent to help with whatever it is that they're doing? We'll go in and read a couple comments. This is Tracy again. Very sloppy evacuation again, to say the least. To say the least. And again, the issue is not necessarily whether or not we should have left, because again, everybody was thinking, you know, our time here is done. We spent enough. We've spent too many lives, but our time here is done. But the execution of this is just been horrendous. Let's read one from John Hayes. In short, we took out their government, but they have had 20 years to get off 100% of our support and form their own military. Yeah, and that's the argument that everybody's making is, you know, we've spent, what did Blinken said, that we spent $85 billion training Afghani military individuals, as well as paying their salaries for the last 20 years. At what point does the bird got to fly, right? At what point is that, need to take place? Because we can't do that forever, probably. We can't continue to train Afghan forces forever. This is another interesting one. Jacob Taylor, we left them without ammo and a lot of the military vehicles and ability to do stuff. That one's a little bit more tricky. Knowing if we had intelligence, which it's seeming more and more like we did, that the Taliban were going to take over, the question becomes, do you leave military vehicles, military equipment, ammo for the Afghan military that's inevitably going to be taken by the Taliban? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you do. It's a more difficult one to say that, again, I'm not saying that you're saying this, but to say that the Taliban was left with completely nothing is, look, we understand what's going on here and we understand the situation that's happening. inevitably these vehicles, this ammunition, this weaponry is going to be taken by the Taliban, and by leaving it here, the only thing that we're doing is emboldening their ability to fight in the future, because all of that stuff is going to go to the Taliban. That's a difficult one. Don't really know. Biden needs to be impeached. Being impeached is being thrown around a lot. There's several scholars out there that say presidents should be impeached far more often, and I somewhat tend to agree with that. This is going to get really interesting, and I hate to talk politics right now, just because, this is happening in real time, and there are real lives at stake right now. We're going to talk politics. Look, the politics and the optics of this is terrible for the Biden administration internally. I would be willing to bet that Kamala Harris starts to distance herself a little bit, and there's going to be a little bit of infighting going on between the president and the vice president. Whether or not he's going to be impeached, I have no idea. But I think he's going to take a lot of heat, not only for the botched execution of whatever plan they did have, but the fact they just didn't say anything for 3 days. Mentioned it, I'll mention it again. The Biden administration was completely radio silent for the entire weekend, including Psaki. Jen Psaki didn't say anything to anybody through this entire weekend. Which is insane. But, this is just what it is. This is the political angle of it. And Nancy Pelosi also came out and said that the Biden administration should be commended for the decision. Again, we're not talking about the decision. No, we're talking about the execution of a botched plan to begin with. Atlantic, not a conservative article or not a conservative news organization, had a headline: Biden's betrayal of Afghans will live in infamy. So he's going to be taking heat from a lot of sides, pretty much all of the sides. Joe Biden is, and it's going to be really interesting from a political angle. And here's the other thing too. Here's the other thing that irritates me about the non-statements or the platitudes from your Nancy Pelosi's. Now, not to get into the whole history of why I dislike Nancy Pelosi, but just right now, right? Nancy Pelosi came out and said that it's going to be, she's commending Joe Biden for the decision to leave Afghanistan. Look, cut the crap, man. The Taliban is going to door, according to a lot of different sources, and killing anybody with a skill that could be harmful to the Taliban taking over and taking complete control. If you're a skilled worker, right? If you're a pilot, if you're a journalist, if you're whatever, they're going door to door right now and kill. Your empty platitudes of just saying that the decision was upheld and, whatever your talking point is, cut the crap. Like this is a real life situation that real people are facing real implications for what's happening. If you're going to say anything, geez. And then she's talking about the Taliban are going to be held to account. By what? Your words? Get out of here with that crap. Who cares? They don't care. The Taliban doesn't care if you talk bad about them. Seriously? I know this is usually more of a lighthearted, levity-filled show, but this is insane. Obama's former ambassador to Afghanistan said something really interesting. I'm going to try and find it right now. I know we're getting a little bit out of the weeds here, but the former Afghanistan ambassador said something under the Obama administration. I can't find it right now, but can't find it right now. But in short, the former ambassador to Afghanistan under Obama, right? This guy and Joe Biden have spent, I would imagine, late nights up talking about policy in Afghanistan. But essentially said that he's questioning Joe Biden's ability to lead as the commander in chief. Rightfully so. Again, this is not about the decision to leave Afghanistan. None of this is about the decision. This is entirely about the execution and then the radio silence that followed it. Unreal. Like it is unreal. Sorry, I feel like Alex Jones when he apologizes for being upset, but this is crazy, right? This is absolutely nuts. It makes us look so bad on the world stage, especially in a time with heightened scrutiny on everything we do from a military standpoint. Absolutely unreal how this makes us look in the eyes of China and the eyes of the rest of the world. We explained it a little bit. I'm going to explain it again because there's new people coming on and watching and commenting time and time again. Let me see if I can read this comment because I think this might be good. All right, I think I can. There's no cuss words in it. China is very clever in the way they're finding desperate countries and playing Jesus and offering what seems like a gift from the heart, but is obviously a poison apple, and they're going to eat it. When you're desperate, any help is welcome, and the one packaged the most beautifully, regardless of the content, is most, it looks like it probably says most eagerly accepted, and it probably continues to go on. So, Waylon, thanks for the comment. To comment on that comment, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, we're currently trying to coax other countries to come onto our side instead of China. There are two dominant superpowers in the world. It's us and China. And unfortunately, it's going to be us versus China at some point in some sort of conflict sometime in the future. Could be tomorrow, could be 15 years from now. Who knows? But in the process of that, we're trying to gather allies. So is China. We're trying to convince people that the American way is the best way to do things. And I believe it is. I wholeheartedly believe that that is the case. And China is trying to convince that the communist way is the best way to do things. They're sending monetary gifts to these countries to try and coax them to be on their side. Oh, this is interesting. There's another comment here that I maybe want to read, but we'll get to in the future. Jacob, that's a good point. But we're trying to get people onto our side. And what does this do to our negotiating ability when we're talking to the South Asian countries of the world, saying, hey, no, you gotta come to our side. The United States way is better at doing things. And then they go, well, Afghanistan doesn't look like a better way of doing things. Because again, this is a global story. This is a massive global story at this point. And not to mention that China's going to use this in the bargaining table. They're going to look at all these other countries and for better or worse, whether or not it's evil or not, China doesn't care about wasting lives militarily. They don't care about that. They just don't. That's the reality of the situation. So they wouldn't let something like this happen. They would just stay there forever and use as much money and as much Chinese military life as needed to make sure they can dominate and maintain control. And if you're another country who's trying to sign a deal with either us or China, who do you want more? A country that is going to pull out of a place that they've been occupying for decades and spent trillions of dollars. It was an entirely failure, and the pull out of that country was completely embarrassing, or the country that doesn't care. I don't know. The difficult decision to make. I think how this makes us look on the world stage can't be overstated enough. That's the problem here. The problem is not the decision to leave. The problem is how we left. This cannot have been the plan. And if you've been on here the entire time, I hope I'm not repeating myself, but we do have viewers funneling in and out. Jacob said there's no coincidence that China didn't have to evacuate their embassy. Very interesting point there. Yeah. Yeah. If you really want to tie the dots together, China puts a lot of money. China and Iran are buddies. Iran funds the Taliban. Not hard to draw the lines. Again, I know for those of you who stayed on, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I think this is important. I want to show some photos from a friend of mine, Aja Smith, who's also running for Congress. Russia didn't evacuate either. Yeah. China, Iran, Russia, buddies. If you don't know this, you should know it. Iran funds a lot of what the Taliban wants to do because they see it as an ally, right? The Afghani government, propped up by the United States, is an ally to the United States. And if we're in a heated negotiation with Iran, the Taliban just took over the entire country. So that helps Iran a lot, especially when we're at the negotiating table with them over a nuclear deal. That could be a topic for a different time, but yeah. Like I said, I want to play some of these clips. This is from Aja Smith's Facebook page. Some of these are private, so I got to share her page. Aja, thanks so much for being unwilling or unknowingly willing to do that for us. So let's watch some of these videos. This is the airport in Kabul. If you're listening and you're not watching this, there's no real sound on it, but there's just a horde of people. It hasn't ended. There's just a sea of people sprinting across the tarmac onto planes. And in that, there's people getting on planes that shouldn't be on those planes. And it's just total and utter complete chaos. We'll go to this next video over here. This is actually on a plane leaving. There's people that don't have seats and they're just on there. And look, American Airlines might drag you off the plane for being in the wrong seat. That's not happening here, man. If you get on that plane, if I get on that plane, ain't nobody's kicking me off. I don't care if I have a seat or not. I'm on that plane. This is a plane in particular departing for Istanbul. If you're not watching, you're just listening to this later on the podcast. There's people standing in the aisles, flooding the aisles. It looks like they probably ran across the tarmac, hopped onto this plane, and they're not getting off. And I wouldn't either. Can you blame them? I wouldn't either. I wouldn't get off the plane. Screw that. I'm on this plane. I'm getting out. This is a C-17. My cousin just texted me right now. His girlfriend works on these C-17 planes, I think, and this is just us loading people onto the plane. Look, here's another thing that we're just kind of missing is the fact that from a plan perspective, it doesn't really look like we have much of a plan at all. But what this looks like on the national stage is we're getting Americans out, which we should. I'm not faulting that. I think we should be trying to get Americans out, and Americans, probably take priority. Sorry that, U.S. citizens, that's what our government is supposed to do, protect U.S. citizens here and as much as abroad as they can. But what has ended up happening is we're taking United States citizens, people, Americans out of Afghanistan as much as possible and basically saying sorry to everybody else. Whether or not that's what we're supposed to be doing, how does that look? How does that look when we go to other countries and we say, hey, we're going to help you do this, or we need, help fighting the anti-government group, whatever that is, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, whatever group that is that we're trying to quell. We're going to the locals there and saying, hey, we need your help. We need you to be translators. We need you to be informants. We need you to tell us anything that you know. Given what's happening here, you think anybody is going to sign up voluntarily for that anymore? No, people around the world have news. And unfortunately, this is the precedent that the United States is setting for future negotiations of that. Right? If I lived in Africa and you said, we're going to come in to stop Boko Haram, can you translate for us? I'm thinking twice about that. I'm thinking, I don't know, man, you guys didn't really do much for Afghani translators. And look, to its credit, the Biden administration did a lot to get as many Afghani translators out of there as possible. Could it have been better? Yeah, absolutely. But the United States government is a massive bureaucracy where almost nothing can get done because it's just so bloated. You have Afghani translators that have been helping us for the last 15, 20 years. They're loyal to the United States. They're fighting the Taliban. We've vetted them. We've run security background checks, everything that we need to do on them to make sure that we can trust them. And we have trusted them. We couldn't get them out in a reasonable amount of time. How terrible does that look? I was joking about it the other day. It's not really a joke, but why doesn't a military loving rich guy fly his plane to Afghanistan, pick up a bunch of Afghani translators, fly them to Mexico, and have them cross the border illegally? Because apparently that's fine. If you're an Afghani translator that has helped serve the United States military fighting against the Taliban for the last 20 years, you and your family can't come, but borders wide the F open. How does that make any sense whatsoever? But this is a reality of the situation. None of this makes us look good, and this is entirely at the Biden administration's feet. And again, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. If you're listening to the podcast, nothing new is coming, but we do have new people coming on here constantly and watching and commentating and all that sort of stuff. But here's the thing. The Biden administration, Anthony Blinken came out and basically said that the Biden administration was looking to the Trump plan to get out of Afghanistan. That's a bunch of crap, man. And the reason is, and had they not come in and just completely changed course and did a 180 on a bunch of the different Trump plans, that argument might hold some ground. It might be that the Biden administration could say, we are just following what the Trump team had in place. But here's the problem. They didn't do that for anything else. They came in and just completely, the whole, what's it called, gas prices are so effing high because the Keystone XL pipeline permit got yanked for no real good reason. And I don't want to go on to a tangent here, but the Biden administration shut that permit down or that ability down because Trump was in favor of it, not because any legitimate logistical reason. Look, the pipeline was sending oil down to the refineries in Texas as eco-friendly as possible. Now they're getting trucked down. So not only is it more expensive, it's less environmentally friendly. It makes no sense to shut that down. Yet the Biden administration did a full 180 when they came into office, specifically because it was a Trump proponent. Trump was a proponent of doing it. They completely reversed course on immigration at the border. There are 175,000 people come across the border every single month. It's insane. They completely reversed that. So coming out and saying that this is a Trump era plan that was ill-advised and ill-formed, it was a bad Trump plan. No, you don't get to do that. Because you came in and reversed all of the other Trump plans. Who says you couldn't do this to that? Who says that you couldn't reverse this plan if you thought it was so bad? This is all at the Biden administration's feet. The execution of whatever plan they did have is the massive problem that we're going to have. And we're going to have to figure out over the course of the next couple of weeks is what did they know? I want to play this Richard Engel clip one more time. This is Richard Engel on MSNBC. I made sure to get an MSNBC clip because I know none of us are big fans of MSNBC. Nobody's walking around in a Rachel Maddow t-shirt who's watching this show probably. But even MSNBC has reporters on saying this. This is, again, Richard Engel, who's been reporting on Afghanistan and the Middle East for quite some time now, talking about whether or not this is a surprise at all. Listen in.
Surprise here is not that it is happening as much as how fast it is happening. Would you agree with that?
No. Everyone keeps saying that. I've been listening all day. Oh, my God, we're shocked at how fast. I'm not shocked at all. Last time I was here, I was looking at the calendar and figuring out, because now with COVID and travel, when you're going to have to come back and how long you have to isolate. COVID makes you have to plan ahead a little bit on traveling. And I thought Kabul was going to fall right around now. That was just a gut instinct. And I think lots of people that I spoke to believe that. Last time I was here, I spoke to Afghan government officials, to Afghan military officials. It was well known that the security services were collapsing a month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So this feigned surprise that, or maybe it's genuine surprise, but if it is, I don't understand what it's based on. It was quite clear that it was going to come to this when you started to see the Taliban take territory without having to fight months ago. So, no, I'm not at all surprised by the speed. And then, these things snowball. Once you have enough momentum and have enough weapons, nobody's going to stand up to you.
Right.
And nobody did.
Richard, you and I talked last about the visas that we were trying to get to people who had assisted U.S. troops and Americans in Afghanistan. Many of them struggled to get to Kabul, to get to the embassy, to get their visa. They don't have them. That's not going to happen now, right?
Those people are in serious, serious trouble. They're now having to operate in secret because as of tomorrow, the next day, 3 days from now, as soon as this embassy evacuation is complete or sooner, the Taliban are going to control the city through the form of an interim government. That means they're going to control the airports or part of the airport or access to the airport. It means they're going to control borders. They already control the border points. And when the Taliban was in power, people weren't free to come and go. You had to explain to the Taliban who you were, why you wanted to travel. So all those people who haven't left are now going to have to process their visas under the Taliban and explain that they were working for the Americans? I was in touch by a messenger just a few minutes ago with a translator. This is a translator who's been waiting for 4 years to get his visa. We've spoken to his commanding officer who vouches for him. He has reams of paperwork that show that he went on mission after mission as a translator. He's still here. He's hiding in Kabul. And it's hard to tell the emotion over a text, but he was pleading and saying that his family and he are going to die unless something happens.
So that's Richard Engel again talking about the Taliban translators that have been vetted by the United States and with the United States for the last several decades that didn't make it out. It's just frustrating. And sorry, usually we would have ended these by now, but we've got enough people watching and enough buzz around that it kind of just makes sense to reiterate things because I know people are coming on sporadically and listening to different points of this. But the idea that we couldn't, or the fact that we couldn't logistically figure out how to get Taliban look, getting the military out and pulling all of our resources and our troops and our equipment, anything that we had, pulling it out of there was logistically difficult. But the fact that the Afghan translators that aided the United States, the intelligence people that tipped United States service members off, saved lives of United States service members, weren't included in the overall plan to get out of there is a massive, massive failure of the United States government. It doesn't make me happy saying that. I want or wanted Joe Biden to win on that. It's not about politics at that point. This is just about humanitarian ability to get people out of a dangerous situation that have been beneficial to us. I would like Joe Biden to succeed at that. I would like the administration that I criticize a lot to succeed in the process of getting people out of there that helped us for the last decades, and they didn't do it. It's not a partisan thing. It's a bureaucracy thing. The United States government bureaucracy is apparently so big and so massive that we couldn't figure out the paperwork and the logistics to get people out of there who've been helping us for the last several decades. And the sad reality is they're going to die there. And it's just embarrassing. It's sad. It's embarrassing. And there's no excuse for it. But nevertheless, it's happening. How does this translate to our perception of the ability of the federal government going forward? One of the most routine things that we could have done is get all of these supporters of the United States that have helped us over the last 2 decades accomplish our goals, save American lives. The least we could have done is included them in the plans to get them out as our military was getting out, and we didn't do that. What can we do? Seriously, what can we do? If we can't do that, what can we do? Again, not a partisan thing, it's a bureaucracy thing. The federal government has proven itself completely incompetent, in planning for something that should have been well thought out, well planned out. Not even talking about the execution of it, because the execution of this, whatever this plan was, has been terrible. But dang, man, like I don't know. It's an embarrassment. It is a total embarrassment for the United States on a global scale. But anyways, we're going to wrap things up. If you missed any of this, you want to share it. Look, this is what we did at the beginning, just kind of recap. We went through an entire timeline of what happened through the Biden administration's decision to leave to the fall of the capital of Afghanistan, which happened within 2 months, 3 months. We recapped everything that happened there, did a timeline, really pretty cohesive timeline. And then went on to talk about all the commentary of this is an embarrassment to the United States on a global scale. Everybody's watching. How does this compare to what China would do? How does this compare to all of our other people how does this look to our allies? We didn't even talk about what our first world allies are going to be thinking about this. Like, the UK is seeing this. Canada's seeing this. All of your European countries are seeing this and going, maybe there's a positive outcome for this. And I'm going on a whim here, but maybe there's a positive outcome to the United States botching this that may lead the Nordic countries or European countries to go, hey, maybe we should get our own military and stop leaning on the United States to defend us, because that's what we do. We defend them entirely. We don't necessarily defend their borders or defend them on a geographical local scale, but we take care of all the dirty work. We do everything for the rest of the world when it comes to global affairs and military engagement. We do all of it. We get some help from the UN, but not nearly enough. Maybe, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but maybe the other developed countries around the world will look at this and go, maybe we shouldn't trust the United States. Maybe we should build our own military. And maybe we won't have to be the world police. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but maybe that's what comes of it. But regardless, right now, in this time, it's just an embarrassing outcome for the United States. I don't know. Just humiliating. But anyways, we're going to sign off here. Been on here for an hour. This is the longest one we've ever done. If you missed any of it, you want to check it out, go check out the podcast. Links should be in the show description so you can listen to the entire screed, the timeline, the commentary on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, Facebook. We have a really fun Daily Caller episode coming out this week. If you haven't watched my show on Daily Caller, it's called Quality Control. Last week we decided to go hit Cuomo. This week, with Daily Caller I do a show with the Daily Caller. Tucker Carlson's founded a news organization called the Daily Caller. If you haven't already, go check it out. It's awesome. We do a lot of great deep dives into what's going on. We did a deep dive on Cuomo last week, which now seems completely irrelevant, but I think that video is coming out today, looking at Andrew Cuomo and the entirety of his political career and the downfall of it. Really cool video, but again, the timing of it wasn't great because we've got this happening. So I would imagine we're going to do a deep dive in this on quality control over on Daily Caller. If you haven't, go follow us on Daily Caller. Go check it out, dailycaller.com. Follow me on Instagram, the Jobob Show on Instagram. Post a lot of funny stuff. This clips from this episode will be up here. If you haven't been able to, get the entire thing, make sure you download the podcast, rewatch this back on Facebook or YouTube. It'll be all the way up there. Show this to your younger generation. If you've got kids or you got grandkids that don't really know what's going on, like on Instagram, I show that my wife doesn't really have much of a clue of what's going on. And you don't blame people for not knowing, but people should know. So share this with your younger folks. We tried to make it a concise summary of what happened and what is happening and how that plays on a international scale and even internally, domestically. But anyways, share this with your younger friends, kids, grandkids, their friends, because people should know. People should understand that, this does not make us look good. And we kind of have to figure out what we're going to do and how we want to be perceived as a country on the global scale. And the Biden administration was not up to par for this one. So anyways, share this wherever you got. Again, check out the show on Daily Caller called Quality Control. This week we hit Cuomo. Next week, I'm sure we'll do the more in-depth coverage of Afghanistan, provide some commentary and give some stuff that we haven't gotten here. We will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Check it out. We'll probably have more information on Afghanistan, and we'll probably do another segment on Afghanistan. Again, this is the biggest international story in the last 50 years. Hopefully, the Biden administration will have said something by then, and we'll be able to comment on it. So, thanks for hanging in there for so long. It's the longest one we've ever done. We will be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, go check the podcast. Or listen to past episodes. A lot of stuff. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. God bless America.